Hello, everyone, and welcome to Paranormal Round Table. I'm your host, Josh Turner, also known as Wolf, and this is PRT. It's what we call Paranormal Round Table, for short, PRT. And we call our listeners the paratroopers. Actually, I didn't come up with that name. Some people just started saying that, and I was like, it sounds better than embittered, hateful stormtroopers, which is what I was going to call them. But people were like, hey, we're tired of fighting with everybody, so we're just going to call ourselves the paratroopers and pretend like we don't actually, have all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go with that. Paratroopers, no longer the disenfranchised, hateful, embittered stormtroopers. And I got that from Star Wars, okay, because they looked very angry and embittered and hateful because their little masks, they're like in a frown. So anyway, I just thought they looked really mad when I was a kid. I was like, why are they so angry? But... But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Folks, prtpodcast.com, that's the website. My email address is joshturner@prtpodcast.com. And what we're going to do tonight, we're going to have a special guest, and I have my co-host, the lovely Mrs. Turner. You want to say hello?
Hello.
Nellie, she's going to be sitting in, and we have a real treat for you. We're going to be talking some Mothman. Before we do that, though, we got to get out all this information. Paranormal Roundtable group on Facebook. I need you guys to go and join if you're not already joined up, because there's a link that we drop every episode, and we give away a free book, an autographed book, and you might get some really cool stuff, stickers and some other things that we throw in there. And if you're from out of state and you're chosen, then you get some Texas swag too, because we want everybody to be a Texan, trying to take over the world. You know how it goes.
One of us.
One of us. So anyways, we have Paranormal Encounters, which is Tony's group. And then we have Whisper to a Scream, which is Ryan's group. We have the Paranormal Lounge.
My group.
Which is Nellie's group. And then we have the Josh Turner Fan Club, which I did not create. I'm not narcissistic. Hey, I'm going to make a fan club. Phil Stern made that, and it's mostly just jokes and silly stuff, but it's fun.
Great memes.
And then we also started a Paranormal Roundtable prayer page because we had so many prayer requests on Paranormal Lounge and Paranormal Roundtable that we have made a prayer page just for that. So if you have prayer requests, send them to that page. And so the Paranormal Roundtable and Paranormal Lounge and Paranormal Encounters are kept kind of from where the roots are. And but we definitely don't. If you need prayer, you're also free to message us. That's another thing I need to talk about. Please, if you're going to send me a friend request, let me know that you're a listener of the show, please, because I don't want to deny a listener. Like some woman the other day said something really mean and nasty to me because I denied her friend request. And honestly, I'm very sorry, ma'am, but it's because you were very pretty, and I thought that you were a bot, and so I was like, this, oh, okay, another one of these, huh? Yeah, you're a Russian swimsuit model. Yeah, get out of here. So I gave her the heave ho. And then she's like, you're not a nice person. I'm like, wow, that's weird. One of these bots is talking to me. And it actually turned out to be a real person that was actually just a nice person. And I was like, oh my gosh. Then she's just like, well, you're not nice. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I thought you were one of these, scam bot things, whatever. But turned out it was a normal person. So please just send me a request. If you send me a request, say, hey, I'm a listener of the show. I'm not a weird, bot or whatever, so I know that you're a human being. And if it turns out that you're a troll, we'll just give you the heave-ho. It's not a big deal when we move on. Don't forget about Tuesday live streams. Those are YouTube exclusives. Those are exclusives to YouTube. You're not going to get those on Spotify or iTunes or any of these other whatever. So if you're listening to the show here, you're missing out on Tuesdays, okay? And we did a whole segment on the LBL, and we had like Barton Nunley and Jody Cook and all kinds of people coming on there, and it was just, we had a whole like several weeks of talking about the LBL, the killings of the LBL, and that really garnered a lot of views. So if anybody wants to go back and check it out, those did really well. And, people come on now on the live stream on Tuesdays, and they'll tell their stories. But we're still doing the Friday thing, and we're going to keep doing it. And so that's what we're doing tonight. Our guest tonight is Ashley Hilt. She goes by Ashers, and she has a show. Ashley, you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi, paratroopers. I wanted to make a comment about that because I think it's really neat that they have a nickname. I don't know what my listeners would be called. I guess weirdos. I guess. But I don't know. So
Well, and that's because you have your show is called, what is it called? Wednesdays We Talk Weird.
It's called On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. Yes, where we talk about a lot of weird stuff every Wednesday. So it's lengthy, but you know what the thing is that if you Google it or you Bing it or you DuckDuckGo or whatever it is that you do, it's the only thing that pops up. So it worked out in our favor.
Well, that is good. And then Wednesdays You Talk Weird. I talk weird like all the time, like every day.
All the time. Well, that's like the secret. Like that's the secret of the show is that it's literally every day. And we actually don't record it on Wednesday, so we're not even like talking weird on Wednesday. But you know, that's that movie magic for you.
Trade
I know,
secrets.
mind blown, right? Yeah.
That's like right now we're recording, and this is a Saturday, and then it'll drop on a Friday. But
on a Friday, right?
Yeah.
But now everybody knows. So I don't.
And then we're talking weird on a Saturday with the Wednesday person that doesn't even do it on Wednesday.
Listen, time doesn't really exist.
That's
so
right.
It's fine.
Man-made concept. Wrap your minds around that, folks. Pair of weirdos. So together we're the pair of weirdos today.
Yeah.
I like the whole cult thing, though.
Oh yeah, because it's a cult now. Because I was accused of that again. Like
PRT cult.
PRT cult in effect over there at the Bigfoot Now group. We came in blasting, man.
Hurt members.
Yeah.
I will say the first time I ever talked to Josh, he sent me a message and he just said, "Hey, do you want to join a cult?" And I was here for it. So
you were like, you showed up with the flyer, like, "Hey, what's going on with this cult thing?" You know. And I was like, "Well, I see you got your tiki torch. That's a good start. That's a good one. That's a good start." And you
I was like, "Oh, I heard there's a cult happening. Am I in the right spot?"
I was looking for a new one.
My old one was just getting so bloody. Oh my gosh. Woo! Man.
I went back the next day. Nobody was there. I don't know what happened.
So anyways, we're here. We're talking weird with Ashley. Now, what we're talking about tonight is going to be your wheelhouse, kind of. That's what you do.
It is. So aside from, yes, I have a show, but I'm a Fortean investigator full time. I specialize in the Mothman, as a matter of fact. That is my big baby project. That's what most people know me as. I'm making a documentary called Sinking the Mothman that should be out in fall of 2022. But I'm probably, there's no experts in the field, but if you're going to have somebody talk about the Mothman, it's probably me. So
Shoot, I like the modesty too. That's how I feel about pretty much all these subjects. I'm a self-proclaimed expert genius.
Just expert in all of them. Yep. Don't start that rumor now.
I like to talk about subjects I don't even know about. Some guy's working on his car. You know what you need? That wrenchy thing over there. Let me get it for you. I know all about this.
I'm the expert.
Yeah. There you go. He handed him a ratchet, and he's like, "What is this?" Oh, the wrenchy thing that goes. That's. I'm trying to help, dude. Jeez.
Yeah.
You want my expertise or not? Oh, okay. I guess I'll leave then.
No, I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of really awesome friends join in on the project as well. I'm not a one woman crew. I do have other people that help with the research and whatnot. I guess I got lucky and I'm the face. So, but no, that's my baby. And so, from here on out, it will always be, Mothman will definitely always be close to my heart, even though I will go on to work on other things eventually. This will be probably my top priority for the rest of my life. I've now accepted. So here we are.
Have you been to the Mothman? I'm sure you have, right? The festival.
Oh yeah, I go down to Point Pleasant quite a bit. I guess I haven't been in a while because actually the investigation has now shifted because we feel like we've done pretty much everything that we can do in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. But last year, I was there every other weekend. We go all the time. So
I have a question for you. What got you into the Mothman?
That's a really good question. So I'll tell you, I was a skeptic initially when it came to the Mothman. I didn't believe in it. I've always been into cryptozoology, but I'd always been into more of the flesh and blood, variety, just undiscovered species and whatnot. But with the Mothman, obviously, I think going into it, it's important for everybody to know that it's not biological. It's not terrestrial at all. Can't be. And so I was skeptical. Actually, originally the documentary was not mine. It was somebody else's. They asked if I would come on and be the quote unquote cryptozoologist, because you don't actually need a degree to be a cryptozoologist, which is pretty neat, I guess. But they asked if I would kind of be that face, and I was like, well, yeah, sure. And we started off filming at the Mothman Festival in September 2019, and we went and we spent the whole weekend in West Virginia. And while we were there, I didn't know it at the time, but we experienced a wild string of synchronicities. And it blew my mind. And just kind of as we continued to work on it, and I started to dig kind of deeper into the rabbit hole, things kind of make sense. As a matter of fact, I myself, I started off in my career life. I went to college for, I majored in criminal psychology, but then I minored in astrophysics. And I'm a proud college dropout. I chose parenthood over school. But it wasn't for lack of not being able to.
Right on. That's good.
It didn't work out. Yeah, it didn't work out. So that's fine. I ended up being a marketing specialist instead. That's okay.
Wait, whoa. You're a college dropout. That's it. The interview's over. Let's get out of here.
I know.
We're done. She dropped out of college, folks.
I know. How dare I?
How dare you drop out of college and be successful like me?
Especially in 2021. I mean, who could afford it?
Yeah.
But anyway, I was approaching this with a very scientific scope. And, once I really started digging into a lot of these things that were happening, and once I started like really researching into it, then I found out about, I learned about synchronicities. And it was a concept I was familiar with, but nothing I believed in, because again, I'm very much, you have to prove the science. You have to prove the science. But meanwhile, things are happening to me that I can't prove with science. And things got really weird, and I can't share everything. However, I did eventually find out that I actually had an experience with the Mothman in 2016, and I didn't even know it. So here I am now.
Can you share a little bit of that?
Do you want to lead off with that? You want to talk about the?
Yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah, go ahead and let's do that.
So, and it might get a little strange, but yeah, absolutely. So back in 2016, I was over at a friend's house, and we were going to bed. I was asleep on her couch, and she was in her bedroom, and all the lights are off, and she had this big TV stand. It's like a big vertical, like TV chest. I really don't know what the name is of it. And it's kind of sitting catty corner in the room, where the corner of the room is. And I'm sitting there, and while I'm sitting there, I just kind of start feeling some type of sense of dread come over me. And I look up in the corner of the room, and I see that on top of her TV stand, there is this dark figure forming. And as it's forming, it's not just forming, but it's like expanding out over the top of the room. And as I see it, first kind of pops up the shape of like a humanoid, just kind of like a dark humanoid type figure. But then it's like I said, it's coming out into the room. And as it's coming out into the room, what's actually coming out into the room are wings, are big black wings. And, but at that point I was terrified. It scared me. So I got up and I went and I woke my friend up, and I told her about what had happened. Well, I don't think I told her about what happened. I told her I was very scared. I needed her to wake up. She just kind of laughed it off. She was like, "You're high, go back to bed." And I was like, no, but eventually we kind of went back to bed. And, again, initially I had no idea. I never really talked about it again. And, not really because I didn't feel like I needed to. It was just kind of something that happened, and something that was a fleeting moment that I just didn't really think about. I've always kind of had these weird experiences throughout my life, that weird things have happened, but I just kind of thought, whatever. And this was one of those instances. And as a matter of fact, it was actually somebody else who reported to me their Mothman sighting, that they had seen the Mothman in Atlanta, Georgia, and then it just hit me. Oh my God, I had that exact experience. And, so now I know, but that wasn't where the Mothman started for me. At the time, I didn't know what the Mothman really was. I didn't believe in that stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of like me with what I saw. I didn't know what Dogman was and all that. So, and I had an experience with it. And yeah, and then finally I heard about Dogman, and I was like, yeah, that's what it was.
And it dawns on you, right? And you're like, oh, wow.
But also with what you just said, Wolf and Willie actually had...
I was just about to say, in our old house. Yeah, in our old house. And I don't think it was a moth. I mean, I don't know what it was, but we were laying there we had these two couches, and I've talked about this on the show before, and they were like in an L, and we had this. It was a really nice place, actually. Like in the spring and the fall, it was real cool. They had like this cross breeze, and we had that back door open. It was a sliding door, and we were sitting there, and I woke up to Willie, like, you know how somebody's whispering, but they're being loud, like, hey, hey. You know? And I look over, and he's laying on his couch, and he points up at the wall. And we had these vaulted ceilings, big high vaulted ceilings. And I'll never forget, I saw this humongous shadow-looking thing. And at first, I thought it was just a big black blob on the wall, and I was like, what am I looking at? You know, because there was a lamp on. It was one of those yellowy light lamps, you know. And I'm like, what is that? And then I saw the shadow move, and Willie's like, I've been watching it, you know, for like 10 minutes. It's just sitting there. And so I did what I do, stupid things back when I was in my 20s. And I took a rolled up sock, and I threw it at this thing, and it looked like wings or something unfurled, and it like, you know, it was weird. I don't know how to describe it. It was like it expanded on either side, which I guess could be wings. I don't know, but it shot sideways into my bedroom, making a bunch of noise. And we went in there, and it sounded like the room had been torn apart. There was nothing out of place. Nothing. Not a thing was out of place. And my dogs were freaking out. And I don't know what that was, but that's weird because you saw like the shadowy looking thing. I saw that. And then Nellie, you saw the shadowy looking thing that was like a dog man. Well, my nephew in New Orleans, when he was living there, he saw a shadow dog man. So that's what gives credence to the idea that these things could be more than what you know, we're thinking, oh, they're flesh and blood, flesh and blood. The dog man I saw when I was 15 looked flesh and blood, but that thing I saw that night was definitely just black, like a shadow. It looked demonic, like a big demonic looking thing or whatever.
Well, I mean, the thing about it, you know, the thing about my experience with it is that, you know, since I've come out with it publicly and I've told people about seeing the Mothman, you know, then they ask, well, how do you know it wasn't a shadow person? I've seen, you know, shadow people. How do you know it wasn't that? And I'll tell you, I do paranormal investigations as well. I do it all basically. But you know, the difference, and I've seen shadow people and things like that. I mean, they're also very real and they exist. But one thing that I can't quite seem to translate so much to an audience of people, and it is difficult and a challenge with making this documentary, is that it's just something that you know. It's just something that's just ingrained in your soul. It's just this gut feeling, and you just know. And, you know, that's one thing about it is that, you know, and that's how it is with synchronicity. I mean, that's another thing is that, you know, you've got, well, I don't believe in coincidences for one, not anymore. You know, but with synchronicity, you know something is a synchronicity. Like I saw a meme once that said, oh, of course everybody's going to, you know, see, it's not a mistake that you see 11:11 on your clock because we're all looking at our phones all the time.
We just saw that earlier.
We did.
Yeah, and
folks, before the show, we were actually on the phone with you, Ashley, and Nellie pulls up her phone, and it was 11:11, and I saw because we see it every day.
Listen, and we're talking about it now on the show.
And
so
that's crazy.
That part is not an accident, right?
No.
That's not an accident. But I get to look at the phone and the numbers and things like that. But the difference between a synchronicity and these 1 in a billion chances of happening is that you just feel it. It just washes over. When you know something is significant, you know it. And it's what I explain to people is either you get it or you don't. And I think it's very unfortunate for the people that don't. But I think that they can get there, and I think everybody does eventually kind of reach that point. But it's just not something that you can really explain.
I tried talking to somebody the other day about this, Ashley. And in fact, it's a friend of me and Nellie's on Facebook, and I was telling her, she was like, well, how do you know that it's this, this, and that? And I said, when I'm done training, okay, when I leave the gym, whether I'm lifting weights or kickbox or whatever, I stink. And I just know that it's time to take a shower.
Right.
I told her this is, you know, this is, I mean, you know instinctively, hey, don't go out and stand in line at the grocery store and gross somebody out. Go home, take a shower, and then go grocery shopping. You know, I mean, and I told her, and she's like, it's that simple. I said, it's that simple. You just really know. If you know, you know. And because somebody asked me what they had seen They started describing it to me, and it was not a dog man. And I told them point blank, that is not a dog man. Well, how do you know? I was like, well, there's been 2 or 3 times where I've seen things, and I thought, oh, and then I go automatically, I just know that that's not what that was. I didn't get a good look at it, but I'm almost certain that that was not, because you just feel it. You got this feeling, and once you've been exposed to it, like you just kind of know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I won't get too much off on a tangent, but I think that the first step of it is some type of you have to start off within your person having a really strong constitution. And once you build that, because I know that I struggled with a lot of self-esteem issues and things like that just growing up in general. And I had a weird period in my life at the age of 22 where I just tell people, the only thing I can really describe it as, it's like my brain melted and just reformed into somebody totally different. I don't even know who I was. It's like I died. And it's like I came back as a different, somebody else. And, after that happened, that's when these things started really occurring in my life. And I think that people that, experience these odd events of high strangeness, I think it's people that experience synchronicities and are able to recognize it. You have to start there somehow. And I don't know exactly what the connection is. I can just tell you that I know because I know.
Yeah.
So
that's funny that you say that, because I think for me, it was like right around the age of 21 when I started working downtown Austin, and I changed, and everything
changed.
Yeah, everything changed in my life. Like it's almost like no one at that time no one called me Josh anymore. They all just started calling me Wolf. That's what everybody called me. And I was like, I stepped into a new person. And then with the show now, a lot of people are calling me Josh again. Even some of my old friends, and Nellie, she's over here laughing because they do it to tease me. They're like, hey, Big Josh, and hey, Joshy. And I'm like, dude, this is not cool, because, my fans know me as Josh Turner, but even a lot of my family members got accustomed to just calling me Wolf. And then now with Josh Turner at the show, now everybody's starting to call me Josh Turner again. So it's now back to that, But
now you're not just Josh, you're Josh Turner. So
and so everybody's calling me that, and like some of my friends will be like, hey, Josh. And I'm like, you never called me that in 25 years, and now you're calling me that,
You're like, who?
You're like, who is that?
You got those friends with the nicknames, and even like you hear somebody call them by their name, and you're like, who are they talking to? Oh, that's right. Their name is, Josh.
Their real name is Josh. Yeah. And, and for years I would call my friends that were named Josh, I'd say Josh, and that name felt so weird and alien to me because I hardly ever heard it.
Yeah.
Unless I went to the bank,
Yeah, that's how I am with Ashers. I mean, it's just everybody's called me everybody's like, well, why do you want to go by? I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You can call me Ashley. You can call me Ashers. It doesn't matter. All my friends and family call me Ashers. So I'm used to either one. Or I guess some people go by Ash. It doesn't matter to me, but, I understand the name struggle. I get it, but no, yeah. So I mean, with this Mothman stuff, it was definitely all kind of a slow build for me, getting into it. But like I said, I can't share everything. I do share. I mean, I share little blurbs and stuff like that over on Wednesdays. We Talk Weird show. I don't expect people to go back and listen to all 70 some odd episodes to this point to hear them all. Just wait for the documentary and the book, and there's going to be a book too. So it's exciting stuff.
So can you share some of the encounters, things you've heard from people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, of course, when I started off with it, I thought the same thing. Everybody thinks about the Mothman, and the first thing you think about is, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, 1966 or 67, 1966 to 1967. And you think about the Silver Bridge collapse. One thing that I was surprised to learn was that that's just absolutely not the only place that this thing has been at. The big misconception here is that he is supposed to be some type of harbinger of doom, and we'll get into that theory a little bit more. But what's interesting is that when the Silver Bridge collapsed in December of 67, the Mothman sightings didn't stop. They actually continued in the area well into the spring at that point. I think that the last sighting immediately in that area was, I think it was like in March or April or something like that. But they've gone on, and they've continued. Not just there. When people think about the Mothman, they think about a very specific creature. But the fact of the matter is that we have other examples, like over in the UK, we have the Owlman, which is a very similar creature. We have legends of gargoyles, which is, again, a very similar creature to the Mothman. You've got the flying head, that's Native American lore. You've got all of these examples of what people are describing as the same creature. It always has the same signature descriptions. It's a dark humanoid flying figure with the glowing red eyes. You've always got the glowing red eyes. And sometimes it can change. Sometimes it can be the bat wings. Sometimes it's the feathers. Sometimes it looks more like an owl. Sometimes it looks more like a human. But it always has those same glowing red eyes. Now, as far as incidences go, there have been a lot. There have been so many. Like I said, I've had personal anecdotes with people that claim to see this. I had the person in Atlanta, Georgia that saw it. I had somebody back actually I had 3 reports come in October of Mothman being sighted in Kentucky. As a matter of fact, Kentucky, where the bridge is that connects, or the area that connects Kentucky, where the point is. So Ohio and West Virginia and Kentucky all come to the same conjuncture together. And they were reporting seeing the Mothman over there. 3 separate people, 3 separate accounts seeing the Mothman back where he originally started, basically, just over on the other side of it. So, I mean, it has, it's been around. It's been around for a while. I think what's interesting is when we have these reports of people that see this thing and then they end up having retina issues. They have eye problems afterwards. We just had an incident reported recently over on my buddy Tobias Whalen. He's great. I'll give him a shout out. Tobias Whalen over at the Singular 40th Society. He's my Lake Michigan Mothman expert, for lack of a better term. But he's been doing a lot of the reports over there, and he works really close with Lon Strickler, and they just had a report come in of somebody seeing a flying humanoid creature, and the lady has reported eye issues immediately afterwards. You've got people that had premonitions after they see this thing. They have bouts of horrible illness after they see it. I mean, it's all really interesting stuff. I don't know how to pick just one. I guess I could have, but there's like 20 of them right there for you guys.
Lon's done a lot of work in that field and with the Mothman, like the flap in Chicago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
Well, again, when I first started, I played with the doom theory a little bit, is what I'll refer to it as. But then I thought about Chicago. Of course, I anticipated it. I'm like, well, what's going to happen? What's going to be the big thing? Let's be honest, you guys, it's Chicago. It's unfortunate there every day. It is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got a lot of tragedy surrounding it anyway. But nothing crazy significant has happened yet. But here's one thing that I'll note, and a lot of people don't really know unless you've been to Chicago or you're familiar at all with the area, is that this thing's being sighted around the Chicago O'Hare Airport, right? The international airport right there. But the thing about the airport is that it actually sits right next to Triangle Park. And Triangle Park, they don't just have the Mothman sightings. There's a lot of high strangeness in that area. You've got people that go in there that go missing all the time. You've got talks of cults. You've got talks of disembodied voices. You've got other strange creatures that they're seeing in that area. And then you're talking the Lake Michigan area as well, whereas a lot of other clusters of sightings are happening. They're happening over there too. Over Lake Michigan, you've got reports of UFO sightings. That's very frequent over these Great Lakes. And things like that. So, I mean, anywhere that the Mothman has been is, again, in these concentrated areas of high strangeness. And I don't think that that's a coincidence at all. So
you think you do subscribe to it being as like a harbinger of doom?
I do not, actually. I don't think that it's ever been that way. There is a lot of ties into it, being in certain areas. We've talked about the like it was cited during the whatever that big tsunami was that happened in Japan. A couple of children reported that not Mothman, they said an angel saved them, picked them up and carried them to safety and dropped them off. We've got people that claim, there's the Blackbird of Chernobyl that people claim he was seen before the, Chernobyl disaster. Allegedly,
or the butterfly people. Me and Nellie, we talked about that. The butterfly, the people that claim that there was a tornado. And that you want to talk about that, Nellie?
they just, whenever they see them, they're taken to safety.
Yeah, they were like angels. And it was the children they were talking about.
Yeah, the little kids. There's never anything bad. But you were saying like the Mothman, he you don't think he's a harbinger? Is he just in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Well, I think that's very likely. That's the thing, is that we don't have any reports of the Mothman harming anybody. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, well, aside from, I guess, burning
depending on what the
eyeballs.
Mothman is now.
Well, that's very true. That's very true, because
I got some stories where it did. So
very interesting.
Yeah, not like gouging people's eyes out or anything like that. But I talked about it on the Mexican folklore when I had one of my buddies on. He does a lot of Mexican folklore research, and if you go back in the archives, and I can't even tell which episode it was, but it was a Mexican folklore episode, and we were talking about the La Chusa. We tied it into the La Chusa because there were some people that were leaving their homestead in Mexico, and they were driving down this old road, like just a non-paved, whatever, in an old car, and they got attacked. And but it's there again. It could be something that was summoned, because the story was that it was particularly after it was after one woman in particular, like it was trying to grab her out of, like, I think the back seat and pull her out, and it was like a harpy looking creature. And one of my I guess he would have been my I don't know what you would call him, my dad's cousin, I guess it would be. He had told me one time, like when I was a kid, that when he was in Vietnam, that this weird looking harpy looking creature like was up in a tree, and they started shooting at it, fire, and that it came swooping down, and it literally like took the top of one guy's head off.
Wow.
And then in Guatemala, there's stories of these giant birds, and they call them corta cabeza, which is and they basically like cut people's heads off. They swoop down and they cut people's heads off, and and so there's all these different stories, but these birds or these bird-like people, these harpy-looking creatures. The one that my dad's cousin claimed to have seen, it was like he said that if it was standing up like on its legs, it probably would have been at least 6 foot, and it had the head with a beak, but like a woman's hair, like head. It sounds very much like a lechuza, but this was in Vietnam. And he said that they had been seeing it around the place where they were stationed. So people would take pot shots at it, and then one day, one guy just started whistling at it because it was whistling, and then it came down and just poof, took the top of his head. And he's like, I saw it with my own eyes. But then again, I don't know. This guy, he did have really bad, like, he had some problems. He had some issues.
Well, right. I mean, I've got one guy who says that, and I'm not going to name names for people, but, the Mothman talked to him. And, that's kind of a new one. That doesn't really happen. Some people have, claim to have kind of sort of feelings or, certain, I guess, mental influences. So, in a way, I would say maybe kind of speech. But this was like direct spoken word to him.
Oh, not through telepathy?
And I don't think it was telepathy. I'm pretty sure that he actually, the Mothman spoke to him. But allegedly, the Mothman prophesized and warned him about 9/11. And like I said, I don't know, I have no idea how much water any of this story holds, but that's not that part's not my job. I'm here to take the stories and kind of piece them together. But very interesting, that somebody else had something different. And then of course you've got other people that think that like the Mothman could have possibly been Indrid Cold. I don't know.
And I don't know if people know the story of Indrid Cold. That's a very that's a weird one.
It is. Yeah, it is a very.
Do you want to explain that one to the audience?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So one night in 1966, and this was 10 days before the first Mothman sighting had occurred. Woodrow Derenberger, who was a sewing machine salesman, was driving down the highway. He was driving home. He was in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and a spaceship kind of tailed him for a minute. He didn't know it was a spaceship at first. He thought it was a truck until it went up over his truck and went in front of him and stopped in the middle of the road. And when that happened, he didn't get out of the car. He stayed there. And from the spaceship came a man, just a regular looking man. I mean, he was wearing like really shiny metallic looking clothes, but he just looked like anybody. And he got out of the car and he went over to Woody and he started speaking with him telepathically. And this started off, long story short, this started off a lifelong relationship with this thing. He told Woodrow that his name was Indrid, that he came from a planet called Lanulos, that his people's very much like our people. As a matter of fact, Woodrow Derenberger claims that he's been to the planet of Lanulos, and that he's experienced, life with these people. And he just kind of went on to tell, the story about it and whatnot. Woodrow's now passed, but his daughter, Tanya, she is alive and well, and she is adamant, very adamant, that her father's story was 100% legit, that she still speaks with, she doesn't speak with Indrid. She believes Indrid, Indrid said that Indrid's family said that he died, actually, he was doing something and he was in a space wreck or something and he died, but she believes he's actually in hiding because there's galactic wars going on that we don't know about. And but she says that his children still come and visit her for Mother's Day and things like that. And I mean, who am I to say that that's not happening? I mean, you think about it, Woodrow Derenberger was absolutely nobody from nobody, USA. And would he have a reason to lie about these things? In hindsight, no. I mean, maybe initially, but he took this to his grave, and to the point where his kids are now claiming his legacy, and he didn't get anything for it. Yeah, he wrote a book, but anybody can write a book. I mean, even then, anybody could write a book. They don't really sell that well. You don't get rich writing books.
No, people don't. No.
Unless you're Stephen King, and Woodrow Derenberger's not, he's Woodrow Derenberger, and but it ruined his life. It ruined his life. It ruined his marriage. It ruined his social life. He got ran out of town. Why would you continue to lie if it was that detrimental on the rest of your life? And then why would your kids go on and do that if they didn't actually know that this happened?
And then just out of nowhere, he just decides to come home one day. Hey, kids, I talked to some weird guy. It was from the planet Lanulos.
Exactly. Well, and what was really interesting is, at least the facts that we can prove is that, Woodrow came home, he told his wife, and then they contacted authorities, and then they contacted the media. But while that was happening, and this isn't like speculation, this is a conspiracy, people from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, came all the way from Dayton, which is about a 3-hour trek, to come and speak to Woodrow and told him, listen, we believe you. We just want to know what you know. And Woodrow told him that initial encounter. I don't think he had seen them since then. They never came back to revisit. But then again, he was being painted as some, backwoods hill jack with a crazy story. So they didn't feel like he was a threat. So why would they come back? They got the information they needed. So why did Wright-Patterson Air Force Base take an interest in this guy's story? I mean, there's a reason behind it. It's not, again, there's no coincidences. So.
And the reason for the people thinking that it's Indrid Cold, predominantly the area, where it happened.
Right. It happened basically right outside 10 days before those sightings started happening. And so a lot of people think that it could be connected. I don't believe it is, personally.
Here's one theory that I've actually pondered before. That Indrid Cold came down, began a relationship talking with this individual, and that Mothman maybe was. I mean, this is just speculation, folks. I'm postulating a theory. I went over this with a very prominent researcher. I don't know if I should say his name because he's working on his own projects, but we were talking one night, just shooting the breeze, basically, and we were talking about paranormal stuff and other stuff, and this came up, and this has been about a year ago. We talked about this, and so one of the things that we discussed was the possibility that now let's just follow me here for a minute, that Indrid Cold he came down, okay, to fulfill a mission or to do whatever it was he was supposed to do, and the Mothman was released by his enemies to find him. I've
heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
And so the Mothman, because it would fly over cars and kind of look in. It was like it was looking for something. It was looking for someone. I mean, and when you said, "Oh, the intergalactic wars," the knee-jerk reaction to the audience is going to go like, what in the heck are you talking
It
about?
sounds wild.
You're
Yeah.
talking about Star
I
Trek,
get it.
Star Wars. That's,
Right.
yeah, and it sounds crazy, but when
It
you
does.
deal with what I deal with, you too, like on a weekly
Yeah.
basis, my wife too, we get some stories, man. We get some stories, and people don't know what the heck they're dealing with, and they'll be like, look, I saw this lizard looking thing, I saw this werewolf looking thing. And
Right.
one of my friends who's a big researcher, and he's been on my live stream, and like he told me, like one day, point blank, he's just like, look, man, I think that a lot of these things are of extraterrestrial origin. That's his opinion. He's entitled to believe that. And I told him, hey, man, that's what you believe. He thinks that the dogman are released by extraterrestrials. He also thinks that he doesn't say 100% is what he believes, but it's plausible. And like I say, he's probably going to come on my show one day and talk about these theories. We've talked about it when he gets a chance. But like, it's just he says, like there's reptilians, there's these werewolf looking creatures, there's these Mothman looking creatures, and they're all coming from an extraterrestrial place. Now that's his theory. That's what I'm not saying I believe that, and I know Ashley's not saying that, but that is one theory, and that there is a sort of war going on, and we're just kind of in the middle of it, and we're a battleground, And so what happens is you have good and evil, but you also have these kind of like, like all governments, there's shades of gray. The good guys do bad things and, whatever, because they're trying to stop whatever it is, and everybody thinks they're the good guys. So, but there is like really, really like a precedence for that, because I've heard that so many times over the last, I don't know how many years, that there is a war going on, and we're just one of those battlefields, and there's resources to be had, that they're harvesting certain materials and resources and precious metals and all these other things. And, you just hear all these different stories. So people will be like, oh, that's ridiculous. Well, there's a lot of weird stuff out there that people see that are just, everyday normal people. Delivery guy told me one the other day, he delivers water for a living. He like literally drives around and he drops water off, and he saw a flying creature. It was a very short, not a long involved deal, but it was like it was last winter, and it was dark early. It gets dark early, and so he was driving home, and he said that it was like probably 7:30 in the evening, and this thing just swooped down in front of his vehicle, looked at him, big red bulbous eyes, and then just went around his vehicle and was gone. And he saw it go in the rearview mirror and then go up, and he's like, dude, I know what I saw. And I said, It sounds like you saw a Mothman. This guy didn't even know what a Mothman was. I met this guy through one of my listeners that said, hey, my neighbor claims to have seen a creature, a flying creature. The way he described it, though, was like it was so Mothman-like that it didn't have a head. Like he just said that it was like, it just went up and became like a bulbous looking, but it was like, it wasn't really like, there was no neck, no, you know what I mean? Like there was, the arms were just the wings, and there were like kind of like legs hanging down. It just was a weird thing. He said it was the biggest bird he ever seen, but it was almost like somebody took an owl and bred it with a human. That's the way he described it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that, to me, that sounds like a very typical Mothman sighting. They do sound like really ridiculous concepts. I understand. Again, I came into this as a complete skeptic. This was not something that I would ever subscribe to. If you would have asked me, even 2 years ago when I started really doing this, I wouldn't have ever, believed that I could believe what I know now. And and I've definitely got my own theories. I mean, I can see the extraterrestrial thing. Well, I guess ultra terrestrial.
Yeah,
that's what John Keel refers to them as. And nowadays I definitely refer to myself as a bit of a Keelian. But
explain to the audience who John Keel was.
Yeah, so John Keel was another, 40 investigator. He was probably more along the lines of a ufologist, but he was very, very open-minded. but he's done a lot of research on things. But John Keel, if there was ever an expert on Mothman, it was probably John Keel at the time, because he spent time in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. He spent time with these people, really digging into these sightings and really exploring all of it. A lot of people know the Mothman from that terrible Mothman Prophecies movie. It's really bad, but the main character being portrayed in it is supposed to be John Keel. However, Keel did write a book called The Mothman Prophecies, and it's a great start, if you are looking to really expand your mind on it. But he was an interesting fellow. He was extremely smart. He's got tons of work that he's written about multiple subjects. However, when you start digging into his work, and you really start piecing everything together and everything apart, like he's got one, and I think it's called Strange Creatures from Time and Space, or something along those lines. There's so many John Keel books. But in it, it's got like whole chapters. There's a whole chapter on Bigfoot, right? And it's like going through, and it's describing like different, Bigfoot type creatures and stuff like that. It's got a whole chapter on, on sea monsters or whatever, and it's just going through describing all those different ones. However, what's really suspect about it is that there's an entire chapter just on Mothman, which is weird because you could put Mothman. He's got a chapter on flying humanoids. And other flying big, Thunderbirds and whatnot. But he's got one completely on the Mothman, and he's got another one that's completely on Indrid Cold. And so it just shows how much this became a really personal thing for him. To the point that a lot of these people, and I'll tell you, it's scary being somebody that's so fresh and new to it, kind of watching it with that scope. A lot of these people that really start getting into the really kind of, I guess it's considered woo-woo stuff, they go nuts. I mean, they end up going insane. And because it is almost enough to drive you insane when you start viewing the world in a different scope than everybody else sees it. I mean, it's hard, it's hard to kind of go your day-to-day life and not talk about this stuff. It's hard to just go to the grocery store and carry on like everybody's normal and everything's normal. When, meanwhile, that you live, 10 minutes from one of the most famous, Air Force bases in the world that's conducting, retro engineering on alien technology. And you know what I mean? Like, it's really, that's another thing. I live right by the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So that's another.
Well, I'm telling you, it's weird once you learn that the world is not the way that you think it is, like that,
Right.
and then you wake up to the reality. Like I do very physical things. Like I lift weights, I do all kinds of stuff, and
Sure.
I work out, and I do martial arts. But it's like boxing, whatever. Those are physical things, and everybody's like, I was talking to this guy at the gym the other day, and he's like, well, I believe in what I can see and what I can hit.
Right.
And I told him, I said, well, then you're believing in a very small fraction of what this world is made of, because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. We're not physical beings having spiritual experiences. And I think once you come to the realization that we're all really just functioning vibrations, we're in a different, and that's what we are.
Right.
And then you're kind of like going like, whoa, it's a weird concept to think about, but the truth of the matter is, we're just vibrating particles that have decided to, hey, let's just make a one complete, whatever, a whole. And everybody thinks we're all different. And people don't realize that me, you, Nellie, we're all connected in a way that no one really understands. They have no concept of that. And everybody's very guarded. They're always like, I'm an individual. I do my thing. You do your thing, and it's like, no, you're not. We're all one big culture. And you don't really understand the true nature of these of the world around you. And if you poo-poo every time somebody says, hey, I saw something really weird that was, all it takes is just, realizing that we're in the third of 11 dimensions.
Exactly. And that's, that's the way that I explain it to people a lot when I explain these types of things, is that, for one, disclaimer, you're talking about very large concepts that we just aren't, in whatever stage that we are right now in humanity, we are not really meant to understand, because we're simply third dimensional creatures. We don't,
we're not ready. And dude, that's another thing. I think a lot of people will eventually
Right.
transcend and go where they. But there's a lot of people that are just like, it ain't happening, dude.
It's
And
just not, yeah, we're just not there. I mean, the science is so infantile. That's what I say all the time, and people really kind of misconstrue, sometimes what I'm saying is that, I believe that I do believe, I'll say this. I do believe that there are cryptids, flesh and blood, biological, terrestrial cryptids. I think that there's plenty that still needs to be discovered in the world, right? That we're not even there yet. However, I also believe that there is something else going on, whether you want to call them aliens, you want to call them extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, interdimensional, whether you want to call them gods or spirits or whatever. I think that those things are connected to each other. I think that they are.
I agree. And I believe like that. I believe that there are flesh and blood ones, and then there are ones that can become flesh and blood, or
Right.
they can become,
they're all
spiritual.
demons.
Oh my gosh, that scared me.
They're demons. They're all demons.
All
of them.
demons.
All
It says
demons.
so in the King James Version Bible. It says they're all demons, and that's what they are. They're demons. Here a demon, there a demon, everywhere a demon, demon.
Gone once, gone twice.
I'm sorry. What were you saying? I'm trying to drown you out, fool woman, talking about that. They're talking about, they're demons.
Oh my gosh.
You see a ghost, it's a demon. You see a dog man, it's a demon. You see a mothman, it's a demon. You see a reptile, it's a demon.
It's a demon.
And that's like that is the mentality, though. Like
It is,
I was raised in a Christian household. My parents weren't the ones doing it. I was sent to a school, and they were like, "Oh, you're having dreams about that's a demon." Oh, you got that. That's a demon. You saw something like a shadow. That's a demon. Everything was a demon. Like everything.
And when you subscribe to a specific idea, you're closing yourself off from all the different possibilities. And that is one thing that I say about all these theories that people have. You have to make it make sense. And once you start kind of chasing after one theory, it falls apart rather quickly because there's no evidence to back it up otherwise. And so it's very interesting. So that's what I tell people all the time. It's not necessarily my place, even as an entertainer. That's the thing. I'm an investigator first. I'm an entertainer second. Okay. I'm here to try to teach people, about these things and whatnot. However, as an investigator, it's not my place to tell you what these things are. If you come to me with your experience, I can try to give you an idea. I can, at minimum, give you comfort and let you know that you're not alone in this. However, I don't have the answers. And will I ever solve and figure out exactly what the Mothman is? I won't. I can tell you that. I won't at the end of the day. Will I see him again? I am convinced that I will, yeah. But am I going to know exactly what it is? Probably not. However, if I'm lucky, I can at minimum feed into the research a little bit more and the understanding a little bit more for generations, besides myself. And that's more so what my goal is to do, as opposed to just, I'm going to find a Mothman. I'm not out here Mothman hunting to try to capture it and classify it and this, that, and the other, because I know that, at the end of the day, I can't, because I'm third dimensional and he's probably not, and he's bigger than me. So that's what it is. But like I said, once you subscribe to just one of those ideas, once you go, you know what, it's all demons, or it's all aliens, or, it's all cryptids, whatever, you really close yourself off to the possibilities. And it's very unfortunate to do that. I think that's irresponsible. But to keep your wits about yourself as investigators, I think that it's very smart to remain skeptical. And I'm not saying that to sound bad, but I think that the skepticism is what keeps us as researchers and investigators grounded.
There's a healthy aspect to it.
A healthy dose, right? Because let's be honest, mental illness is very real, and some people are simply mentally ill, and you should not exploit that. That's and
I actually have a theory about the mentally ill and stuff, and I think that is also supernatural as well. It may not be in them, but it's around them.
Yeah,
but
it
also,
absolutely could be.
Yeah.
I do.
I was going to ask you, can you give us some examples of, or do you have any stories about the difference between the metaphysical and the physical of the Mothman?
Yeah, because what happened to you seems to be metaphysical.
It's very metaphysical.
Yeah. And so if what happened to me in my house, I think it was just all part of the same soup of paranormality, or if that's even a word. Actually,
It is now.
It is
the
now.
Paranormal Soup, and that's actually a show. My friend Jason Bland, he's a good guy. I just talked to him yesterday. He had a really good show. But anyway, his show's called Paranormal Soup.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was sitting there like talking to him last night, and he was explaining to me why he calls it that and all that. But that what was going on at my house, I think it was all just part of that. So.
Mhm.
But who knows? Maybe Mothman made an appearance. I don't know. I didn't, but it was definitely a metaphysical. So I think what you're asking, Nellie, is examples of the metaphysical as opposed. What are you saying? As opposed to
As
the
opposed
physical?
to the physical.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I see what you're saying. I think a really good example of a physical encounter rather than a metaphysical encounter is definitely the Scarberry sighting. The very the famous Scarberry sighting, which kind of kicked off the Point Pleasant thing a little bit more. So Linda and Roger Scarberry were with two friends, which I can't remember their names because I'm a bad person. But but there was four of them together. Okay, and they're young adults. They were all in their 20s or 20 years old, and they went down to the what's now dubbed it's the TNT area, but actually the McClintock Wildlife Management Area in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And for those of you that don't know, this is where the back in World War II, the government bought that land there, and they built a power plant to manufacture munitions for the war. And I can tell you some interesting stuff about that as well after this. But they had actually built about 80 plus, I think it's like 88 these igloos, these concrete igloos above ground, and that's where they were storing the munitions. However, this was November 15th of 1966. And, the kids would go down there, right? The young people would go down to this area because it was all abandoned and it was spooky. And anyway, so they're down there one night. They've got the car parked at the power plant where the power plant actually was. And they're hanging out. Well, all of a sudden, and a lot of people don't talk about this aspect of it, which is really weird, but all of a sudden, this weird guy, what they thought was a guy, comes kind of walking around the corner of the power plant. What they noted was that he was walking weird. He just looked strange. And he kind of starts walking towards them, and they started getting in their car to leave. And when they did that, all of a sudden, wings pop out from this thing. And so at that point, they're like, absolutely not. They get in the car, they take off. However, it chases them. It flies after them. And, while this is happening, I mean, the wings are flapping against the roof of the car. It's keeping up with them. They're saying that they did speeds upwards of 70 miles an hour. And, this thing is keeping up with them the whole time. Well, eventually they get out of kind of that area and it's not chasing them any longer. But what they did was they made their way to the nearest gas station and they kind of stopped for a minute. And they were like, what? What just happened? And they didn't know what to do. They're like, well, you know what? We're dumb kids. Let's go back and just make sure that we saw something. And so they did. They got back in the car. They went back out there, and they noted that on the side of the road was a dead dog. It had been hit by had roadkill or something, and they noted that it was there. But then they went and they saw this thing again. It jet back and forth, in front of their car. So they're like, "Yep, nope, we're out of here," and they left. Well, when they were coming back around, they didn't see the dead dog anymore. So we're presuming maybe the Mothman ate it. We don't know.
Or took it. Yeah, took it.
Took it, right. And then he went to they all together went to the police station and reported it to the police. But that with that one, I mean, you had aspects of, they saw this thing. It very much could have been, flesh and blood, could have been physical, just because of the way that they described it. You had the wings hitting the top of the car. But then the sheriff took them back out to the area, went back out there with them to investigate. And although he didn't see anything, when they did get out there, very strange things started happening to his radio. They were getting some really weird noises. They couldn't really control it. So that part could be either or. That could be physical, could be metaphysical. With radio waves and stuff back then, I mean, who knows what the interference there might have been. But I guess you kind of had a little bit more, a little bit of both. But I would say that is the most common instance of a Mothman encounter, is seeing this thing just like you said with your buddy, saw a weird bird flying through the air. It's not like it just disappeared. It was physically, I mean, it was flying, and a lot of people report seeing, a very similar, thing. It's just that they all have these glowing red eyes. But I mean, owls have glowing red eyes, so it's not, which I understand the witnesses, the way to describe it is not, it's not the same thing. They describe it as just completely beaming, basically. But other than that, I mean, that's majority of the sightings. And then you do have these off sightings. My story and the one that you shared, that's not the first time I've heard of that. I've heard about that a lot. This thing kind of appearing in people's homes, in front of them. So, I mean, but you do have kind of this physical aspect to it to where, it could be. There was another instance during the Point Pleasant flap, so to speak, where a woman, it tried to take this woman's baby. It tried to take her baby right out of her hands. And yeah, and it was unsuccessful. She went into the house. I believe actually the dog ended up scaring it off. But yeah, it sure did. He tried to take her baby. So, I mean, it's, it's not like this thing can't touch you.
Well, the story I heard was different. She did Muay Thai, and she kicked it, and that's not a plug for us. I'm not plugging. I'm just saying that's probably what happened. Muay Thai saved her. Folks, black sheep boxing, Muay Thai. I'm just saying. That's probably
You're probably right. Yeah, that's very likely. Well, right. So if you need to fight off a Mothman, you guys know where to go.
We can you come here. I'll teach you how to body slam that sucker. And he picks you up and drops you from 30 feet in the air. I'm not liable for that. It's all right.
You got to sign the waiver first.
Yeah, sign the waiver. You can't be been picked up by giant eagles and stuff or whatever. Jeez.
Right.
Know your cryptids. Know who to pick a fight with. The Cocopelli, like the little chupacabra. I'd beat him up, dude. I would kick. You gonna try and drink my blood? What's up? Bam.
Like a puck wedgie. Yeah, I did the same thing with puck wedgie. Yeah, bye.
I'll punt him like, I'll be in the NFL punting him. They'll be like, hey, man, we're going to sign you a contract at the Cowboys. Now, Mothman, no, I'm going to be hiding, ducking for cover. I am not going to be getting grabbed by some weird-looking thing with red eyes. I have a story for you, and actually, I've been dying to tell you this one. I wanted to know what you thought of it, because I told my wife the other day, and she was just like, yeah, whatever, kept looking at Facebook. So obviously she just thought it was stupid and nonsensical and ignored me. I'm just playing. She's over here looking at me like, what? Like, what is he talking about? No, we got a story, and it was a very short one too. It wasn't real long, but it was down in South Texas, in a little bitty town called Farr. Mm-hmm. It's called Farr, Texas. You look it up, and it's way down the valley. There's a string of towns down there. And this guy, he sends me a message saying he's a listener, and he actually, his cousin knew me personally from when I was working downtown, and his cousin, I know him. He worked with me and my brother. And so anyway, he was telling me, he goes, I got a story for you. And he's like, but he called it the lechuza there again, But he said that there was this giant black owl-looking thing that would come and sit on the back fence at his grandparents' house, abuelito and abuelita. And that's the Spanish. Abuelita is your grandma, and your abuelito is your grandfather. But he said that they would, and his grandfather said, hey, there's this giant lechuza is coming around, and so he said that he was going to try and get rid of it, And so he called the priest, and and so the priest comes 2 or 3 nights in a row. There's nothing shows up, nothing happens. It's kind of like the Michigan frog where he dances around, and the guy goes, "Hey," tries to show everybody, and then it just lays there. Yeah. So that's what happened. Like nothing happened. So then he says he went over there with a couple of buddies, and they were in the backyard. And it's one of those Mexican families where he's retired, and he's just spent all this time decorating and setting up his backyard. The backyard was really chill. We had like a little tent kind of looking thing, that they had set up for his sister's quinceañera, and they just left it up. So he goes, we were back there, and they had like a little place where they could have a fire pit, whatever. He said, we were all back there, and we hear this flapping noise, and we look, and there this thing lands right on the fence. And he goes, it was black. The blackest black you could ever imagine. He said that the eyes were red. And he told me, he's like, dude, they were the size of tennis balls. And he goes, and they were absolutely red. And he goes, they bulged out of this thing's head, but you couldn't see where the chest ended, and there was no mouth or anything, just red eyes. And then he said that it was sitting there, and he said that it did when it jumped up off of the fence, because it was only there for probably 10, 15 seconds, he said that they saw it flap overhead. The legs, he said, looked like if you saw like how a turkey or a chicken legs look mixed with like human looking toes. That's how he described it. And that it had arms. And he said, I saw it, dude. He goes, but I saw no feathers. That was the weird thing. And he had two of his friends with him. And I told him, you've probably been drinking baracho, in Spanish. And I was like, mentiroso, baracho, teresos. And he's like, no, man, for real. And I was like, okay, are you sure? He goes, no, dude. He goes, so then I waited. I waited about a week, and I was in my studio, and I decided to call him back up. And I'll call him Raymond. That's not his real name, but
sure.
So I called him, and I said, hey, Raymond, and I kind of was teasing him a little bit. And I said, hey, you want to tell me the story, the truth now? And he goes, man, you still going to, mess with me about that, And I said, well, what did you see? And he told me, he said, I already told you. He told me the whole story again. And he didn't miss a beat. And so I believed him. I believe him. Now, it happened again. This time, his little brother was there with one of their cousins. And his cousin, as we say in Spanish, his primo, he picked up a rock and he threw it at this thing. Okay? He said, dude, it went right through it. And then it just kind of turned into like a skinny pillar of smoke. And I said, dude, what are you talking about? And he goes, dude, that's what my cousin and my little brother told me. Mi hermanos is, his little brother and mi primo. And he said, dude, it turned into like a little skinny pillar of smoke. I don't know how to describe it. And then he said his grandfather went out there and he said the 12 truth prayers, and that's a Mexican thing, whatever. And so anyway, he went out there and he said the 12 truths, and then that he did it every day for several days, and the thing stopped showing up. And then there was an old lady that lived in the neighborhood, and she was known as a curandera, which is the good healer, like the good witch, whatever. But there were a lot of rumors that she was not a real curandera, that she was a bruja.
Yeah.
And that she was doing bad things. Like she one time was a good person, like a healer, but then she started dabbling and she was putting what they call like love spells on people, like jilted lovers. They put a spell,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And so then she turned bad, and then at night she would be gone. Like nobody would see her. Her daughter didn't see her. And so the rumor circulated that she was the one that was going around, flying around at night, whatever. And then one day she just dropped dead. She just, I think it was a heart attack or something, and the sightings stopped. Now, I don't know what to think of that, The two incidences weren't real long, they weren't like a whole big old deal, but that is a weird, what do you think of that? I mean, is that the La Chusa, or was that a Mothman? And was that the Mothman? Was it a metaphysical Mothman, or was it a physical Mothman? See, like that's the big what if, I mean, and so,
Sure.
And this guy, he's like all like, kind of paranoid because, in the Mexican culture, you're not supposed to talk about it because it invites it to you. And, if you see the cadejo, then you're, something could happen to you. And that's why you don't talk about it.
Very similar to where these, these sightings took place. It happened, these things are happening in the Appalachians, and that's how it is there. You don't talk about these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, I definitely get a lot of these secretive people that, are just a part of that culture that don't want to know, don't want people to know that they're talking about these things. But they need to get it off their chest somehow because these things are happening. So that is, I mean, as far as, the connection there, here's the thing that I think, could it have been, could she have been this creature? I don't think so. But I don't think it's an accident that this creature was there while other things were going on.
Maybe she conjured it.
She definitely could have. I think that these things are because we've taken a map and we have mapped out high strangeness and are still mapping out high strangeness across the United States. And if you look at them, they happen in clusters. Right. It's never just an accident. They happen in clusters. So obviously these things are kind of related. However, I think that some of these things, and we'll just, for namesake, we'll say the Mothman to not make it as confusing. I think that they are attracted to kind of high energy places. And the kind of stuff that you're talking about, doing all of this magic and stuff like that, that's very much high energy activity. So therefore, what you're going to do is you're going to then attract things to you that are attracted to things like that. And, I think that's the case with the Mothman. That's why I don't think the Mothman and Indrid Cold are the same. I don't think they're even related to each other, except for the simple fact that Indrid Cold came and created this kind of high energy field in the air. And then that's what attracted them. Ironically, just like a moth to a light attracted it. I mean, really. And that's kind of how, I think that's how these things typically happen, is that, maybe you do get some instances of high strangeness.
Well, it is 100% fact that if you talk about it, it's going to eat you.
Oh, shut up.
I mean,
I
would be scared too. I mean, I'm actually terrified. When we leave here, we're probably going to be attacked.
I hope you see them. If you see the Mothman, tell me.
I'm gonna have to call Ashley. Ashley, I was joking around. I don't know where Nellie's at, but I ran. I just kept running. Ashley's like, "Well, you need to call the police. You don't call me. I'm like 1,000 miles away."
What am I gonna do?
Like, what? I thought you were the expert.
Get your Mothman off of me.
You know what? Forget you. I'm hanging up and calling the police. And then they're gonna probably go like, "Yeah, okay, buddy, sure. You saw a giant flying moth.
Lay off the sauce, man."
They're like a cartoon cop. Hey, buddy, get out of here. No, the thing is, like what you were saying about high energy, though, that's the same thing with Dogman. A lot of times people see these things near power plants. Because the water treatment, that treatment plant, and me and Nellie drive out there all the time, and because I'm a boots on the ground investigator, I drive by really fast and hope that I don't see it. Boots on the ground, boots in the car is more like it, but just boot to the gas pedal.
And that
understandable.
Place
well, that's what
really
I was saying.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for tonight. We'll be back next week with part 2 of Mothman with Ashley Hilt. Thanks for listening.